Hi, and welcome back to English Lessons with Stephanie. This is Writing and Vocabulary Lesson 9. In today's vocabulary set, we have 18 words and 3 phrasal verbs. Our first word is defeat. Defeat is a transitive verb. It means to win over someone, like win in a competition. In the reading, we said, Biden takes over from Donald Trump, who was defeated in the November 2020 elections. In this sentence, defeat is used in the passive form. Trump was defeated by Biden. The active form would read, Biden defeated Trump. In our second example, we use defeat as a noun. Defeat as a noun means a loss. The team suffered a terrible defeat. They didn't score a single goal. In the third example, we use the adjective undefeated. We use the word undefeated to describe someone who has never lost. She is the undefeated champion. She's never lost a match. Our next word is election. Election is a countable noun, which means the process of choosing someone or something. So in the reading, when we talked about the November 2020 elections, this was the process where the United States chose a new president. The verb form is shown in the second example. The students elected a new class treasurer. A treasurer is someone who's in charge of money. You can also elect things that are not people. For example, you could say the students elected to go to the movies instead of studying. In the third example, we see elective as an adjective. Elective as an adjective means chosen or voluntary, not needed. Many people canceled elective surgeries during the pandemic. An elective surgery is a surgery that is not needed, like you will not die if you do not have the surgery. An example of an elective surgery would be cosmetic surgery, where you get surgery to look better. Our third word is politics. Politics is a plural noun, which describes the actions of members of government. In the reading, we said, politically, Joe Biden is known for his centrist politics and his willingness to work with Democrats and Republicans alike. Centrist means in the center. So this sentence means that his political actions are very moderate. They're in the center. They're not too extreme in any one direction. In the second example, we see the word politician, which is the person form of politics. Politicians work hard to earn the public's trust. Politicians, of course, are the people who work in politics. The third example shows us another example of the word politics. Many people think it's impolite to talk about politics with people they don't know very well. In the other column, I wrote the phrase politics as usual. This is a common phrase to describe how people complain about the actions of the government. When someone says, oh, it was politics as usual, they're saying maybe something took too long, or it cost too much money, or it required a lot of conversation. Our next word is core. Core can be a noun or an adjective. In the reading, it was used as an adjective, meaning important or central. The example given was, while there are many differences between these two parties, the core difference concerns the role of government in people's lives. So core difference means main difference or the most important difference. The second example also uses core as an adjective. Honesty is one of his core values. In the other column, I wrote the 3 phrases, core principle, core value, and core mission. These are 3 very common phrases that use the word core. In the last example, I used core as a noun. Core as a noun means the middle of something. At his core, he is hardworking and ambitious. So if we describe a person's core, we could be talking about their spirit, their soul, their energy. Or we could be talking about the muscles in their stomach and back. That's also used to describe core. Core is used to describe apples, the middle part of apples, and also the middle part of the earth. The middle part of anything, really. Our next word is role. Role is a countable noun used to describe a specific function, use, or position. In the reading, we said, while there are many differences between these two parties, the core difference concerns the role of government in people's lives. So role of government means the specific function or purpose or use of government. The next example says, parental support plays a large role in children's success. So a large role here means an important part, an important use, an important function. In the last sentence, it says, artists are not always the best role models for children. A role model is a phrase that means someone you look to show you good behavior. So usually we talk about parents being role models for their children or famous people. In the other column, beneath the words role model, we see the phrase play a role. Role is also used for the part in a play or a movie that an actor plays, the character that they play. And we also have the words role-playing game or RPG. This refers to a video game where the player pretends to be someone else. Our next word is majority. Majority is a countable noun that means the larger part or number of a group. So more than half of a group. In the reading it said, Republicans believe that the federal government's role should be small, and that the majority of decisions be made at the state, local, or individual level. This means that most decisions, more than half of decisions, the big part of decisions. In the second example, we see the adjective major. They're discussing major changes to the plan. Major means big or large. And the opposite of majority is minority. The minority of people do not own passports. That means less than half of people. Our next word is tax. Tax is an amount of money that is paid to the government. In the other column here, I have examples of different types of taxes. Sales tax, that's when you make a purchase at a store and you pay an extra amount. Here in California, it's about 8.5%. Next is income tax. Your income is the amount of money you make every year. Your income tax is the percent of your income that you pay to the government. And finally, property tax. If you own property or land, you will often have to pay a percentage of its value to the local government every year. We also have alcohol taxes and tobacco taxes in the U.S. In the reading, we said, Democrats believe that the national government should take a larger role in everything from human rights and public health to taxation and business regulation. So the word used in the reading was taxation. This is the non-count noun that means the process of creating and collecting taxes. So that's what the government does, taxation. In the second example, we see taxes used as a plural noun. Many Americans think that taxes are too high, even though they pay lower taxes than people in other developed countries. We also have tax, the verb. The government taxes its citizens. That means they collect taxes. The next word is regulation. Regulation in the reading was a non-count noun, meaning control over something. So when we talked about business regulation, that means control over businesses. Regulation as a countable noun just means the same thing as rules. So in the other column, rules and regulations is a common expression, which just means all the rules. Regulate can be an intransitive or a transitive verb. In our second example, it says it's important to regulate pollution. That means to control pollution. And in our last example, we use regulatory as an adjective. The FDA is a regulatory agency that ensures food and drugs are safe for the public. Our next word is position. Position is a countable noun, which means role or job or placement. In the reading, it said Biden held the position of U.S. Senator for the state of Delaware until 2009. So the position of U.S. Senator is a fancy way of saying the job of U.S. Senator. In the second example, we use a different meaning of position. Since I discovered that my friend is cheating on his girlfriend, I've been in a bad position. Should I tell her? I'm also friends with her, but we're not as close. So here, if you're in a bad position, it doesn't mean you have a bad job. It means you're in a bad situation. The circumstances are not so great because you don't know what to do. In the last example, we see position used as a verb. You should position your back while in your chair so you don't get back pain. So here, position your back means to place your back, to hold it in a position, to hold it in a state. Next, we have the verb empathize. And in this chart, I put empathize together with another verb that's very similar, sympathize. These two words are often confused. They mean very similar things. The meaning of empathize is to feel someone else's feelings. The meaning of sympathize is to understand someone else's feelings. So they're very similar. Empathy is a little bit stronger than sympathy. So for example, if you see your friend crying, you know your friend is sad, and you begin to cry as well, and you feel sad because your friend is sad, that's empathy. You're feeling sadness with your friend. Let's imagine that you see your friend one day and she's very angry with her boss. And you've never been angry with your boss, and you cannot really understand her feelings. That would be... But let's imagine that one day you see your friend and she's very angry. She's angry because she had a big fight with her boss. And you have been angry before too, and you can understand what that is like. But when you see your friend is angry, you don't get angry also. So you would sympathize with your friend's anger, but you would empathize with her sadness. In the reading, we said Biden is known for his ability to empathize with others, having lived through several tragedies. In our second example, we see empathy as a noun. Empathy and sympathy are both non-count nouns because they're feelings. I feel empathy for animals, but not for insects. This is very common because we can usually look at a dog or a cat and know if they're happy or scared. But if you look at an ant or a butterfly, it's hard for us to imagine how they're feeling. In our last example, we have the adjective empathetic. She is not very empathetic. It's hard for her to understand other people's situations. In the other column, I wrote empathize and sympathize with. That's because these are both intransitive verbs. So if you understand someone's feelings, you can just say, I sympathize, period. Or you can say, I sympathize with you. Our next word is tragedy. Tragedy can be a count or a non-count noun, meaning a very sad or terrible event. In the reading, we describe several tragedies that Biden lived through, losing his wife and baby daughter, as well as his oldest son. So these are examples of tragedies. In the second example, we have the adjective tragic. The tragic fire claimed hundreds of lives. So you can see that tragedy often involves death, but it doesn't have to involve death. Sometimes a tragedy can just mean a big loss or a very sad event that affects many people. Our next word is task. In the reading, task was used as a transitive verb, meaning to give someone a duty or job to complete. We were talking about Kamala Harris, and we said in her various roles, she has been tasked with protecting the interests of private citizens and pursuing appropriate punishment for illegal behavior. So to task someone with something means to give them the job. However, task is most commonly used as a countable noun, meaning a small job. I have many tasks to do in order to complete my work. That means little things. Examples of tasks could be picking up something for a job, calling a client, writing an email. These are small tasks. Next, we have the verb protect. Protect means to ensure safety for someone or something. So she was tasked with protecting the interests of private citizens. That means making sure that the interests are good and safe. In our second example, we use protection as a non-count noun. Face masks offer protection from the coronavirus. The last example uses protective as an adjective. Sunglasses are protective against UV rays. Our next word is interest. Now, interest has several different meanings. You probably already know that interest could mean a hobby, something that you like to spend time doing, like reading books or listening to music. Interest can also mean money earned in a bank. But in the reading, interest meant a benefit or a good. Kamala Harris protected the interests of private citizens. The interests of private citizens mean the benefits, things that bring good results. In our second example, it says, it's in your best interest to study. If you fail this exam, you will have to take the class again. So, in your best interest means it will be good for you. Or in the last example, it's not in the interest of this country to go to war. This will not help our own citizens. That means it's not good for the country. It's not in the interest of the country. Our next word is pursue. Pursue is a transitive verb, which means to chase, to try to get something. So in the reading, Kamala Harris was tasked with protecting the interests of private citizens and pursuing appropriate punishment for illegal behavior. That means she's trying to make sure that criminals, people who break the law, get appropriately punished. In the second example, the police pursued the thief on foot for nearly a mile before finally catching him. That means they were running after this thief, the person who stole something. And in the last example, the pursuit of a college degree can be very expensive. That means getting a college degree can be expensive because here in the US, It can take many years and lots of money to get a college degree. In the other column, I wrote the pursuit of happiness, which is a very common phrase in the US. The pursuit of happiness means trying to be happy. Pursuing a goal and pursuing a dream are also common uses of this verb. That means you're trying to achieve a goal or trying to make your dreams come true. Legal is an adjective that means allowed by law. In the reading, we use the opposite form, illegal, against the law, when we talked about illegal behavior. In the second example, we see the verb form, legalize. Many states have recently legalized marijuana. That means they've made something legal. And in the last example, we see the adverb form, I received a ticket for illegally parking on the sidewalk. We use the adverbs legally and illegally often because we're describing actions. Our next word is steer. Steer can be a transitive or an intransitive verb, and it means to ensure movement in a direction. So to move something in a specific direction. In the reading, we said, together, the president and vice president steer the country by playing leading roles in the nation's 3 branches of government. So this means that the president and vice president are making sure the country goes in a certain direction. In the second example, we say the CEO steered the company for 20 years. That has a similar meaning. And we also use steer when we're talking about vehicles, like cars or boats or bicycles. He nearly steered the car off the road when he was illegally texting and driving. And this piece of equipment in the car is called the steering wheel because you hold this, it's the shape of a wheel, and you use it to steer the car in a certain direction. Our next word is oversee. Oversee is a transitive verb that means to manage or to supervise. And you can kind of tell that just by looking at the word. We have 2 parts, over and see. So because see is an irregular verb, we have the irregular past tense, oversaw, and the past participle, overseen. In the reading, we said, with the help of countless staff and cabinet members, Biden and Harris will oversee developments in all 3 of these branches over the next 4 years. That means they're going to manage the developments, watch them from up high, and make sure everything is okay. In the last example, it says, how did this mistake happen? Who oversaw this project? Finally, we have our 3 phrasal verbs. And if you don't remember how to use phrasal verbs or the difference between separable and inseparable phrasal verbs, you can review Grammar Lesson 4. We'll start with take over. Take over can be separable if it's a transitive verb, or just used as an inseparable intransitive verb. Because take is an irregular verb, the past tense would be took, and the past participle would be taken. So take over means to take control, to get control of something. In the reading, we said, Biden takes over from Donald Trump, who was defeated in the November 2020 elections. So Donald Trump was in control before, and now Biden takes over. Now Biden is in control. In the second example, we say Giorgio took over the business when he purchased it from his uncle. And the last example, the nanny watches the children until their parents come home and take over. Takeover can also be put together and made into a countable noun. And an example would be this last column, the other column, where it says hostile takeover. That means someone is taking control of something by force, violently perhaps. Our next phrasal verb is live through. Live through is a transitive, inseparable phrasal verb. It means to experience something difficult. And in the other column, I wrote go through, which is a similar phrasal verb that's used in almost exactly the same way. In the reading, we said, Biden is known for his ability to empathize with others, having lived through several tragedies. So that means he experienced these difficult things. The second example says my grandmother lived through World War II. And the last example says he lived through 2 bad marriages before finally meeting Sylvia. So in all these examples, someone lived through a bad experience. And finally, we have the phrasal verb make up. Now, make up is a very common phrasal verb. It has lots of other meanings. In the reading, it has the meaning of to form parts of something. So the example in the reading was the judicial branch, which helps to regulate these laws, is made up of the U.S. court system, including the Supreme Court. This means that the U.S. court system and the Supreme Court are parts of the judicial branch. The second example says, these 4 classes make up the core economics program. And our last example is, water is made up of hydrogen and oxygen. Now, because make is an irregular verb, we have to remember the past tense is made as well as the past participle. Makeup can also be put together to form a countable noun, which means the composition of something, what something is made of. That's all the vocabulary for today. So to practice writing with this vocabulary, you need to write with it. You should write a sentence using each new vocabulary word. You should use the vocabulary again by summarizing the week's reading in 1 to 2 sentences. And then you can write paragraphs to answer these 2 questions. Did you learn anything new about the U.S. government? If so, what? And what do you think the president should do over the next 4 years? If you like this video, please like it, leave a comment, ask a question, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thanks, and see you next time.